Hi, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. So, this is an experimentation version of my online workshop. Again, I just want to give a heads up. This is for everybody who wants to make money, whether you're being employed or whether you're in a business. I'm not selling you anything, right? There's a lot of real world millionaires out there and fake world millionaires out there who are teaching people to make millions and billions. That's not what I'm about to do. My aim here is right now is very simple. In a lot of part of the world, the trend is the quarantine periods are starting to ease out. Ease out as in meaning like in a couple of weeks, people will start going back to work and some semblance of normalcy will come in. But a lot of people, a lot of businesses have been decimated, destroyed financially during this time period, right? Where it comes to a point where people say like, hey, I don't care if I get sick of the disease, I just don't want to die out of hunger. I understand the pain. Now, for years, if you were part of my clientele, and again, I never advertised my business. My business has only been by word of mouth for the last 10-15 years that I've been doing this. I've been always predicting and accurately telling people what will happen for an economic crisis, when it will happen, and what you must do. And a lot of my advice would seem to be rooted in a deep traditional approach of keep what you make, invest what you make, grow what you make. A lot of times my advice is people who make money go like, oh no, it's all right, there'll always be money coming in, but I want to share a little personal experience of mine. I turn 40 next month, and in this 40 years of my existence, I have gone through about 4 or 5 major economic downturns. The very first one I remember was in 1986, right? I was about 6 years old. I know I'm dating myself right now, but I would rather you get this information very clearly. So in 1986, so what had happened was it was the automotive crisis of the world at that particular point in time, and my father, who was employed by a local automotive company in Malaysia at that time, was just let go. He went to work and they said like, yeah, don't come to work tomorrow. And he was making a very small minimum wage at that point in time, maybe about 600-700 ringgit a month, and he was just working on spray painting automobiles. So my father was the sole breadwinner of the family. I was about 6 years old. My sister had been born for about 2 years later, so she was about 4 at that point in time. So my parents got creative because bills got to be paid, right? Rent got to be paid, and etc. So my father went out to some places and hustled some goods. So he bought some toys and he bought a tape recorder, right? We call it a hi-fi set at that point in time. And what had happened was, so I had an uncle who was a radio DJ at a local radio station at that time. So my father would borrow, it was still tapes at that time, right? Cassettes. And he would borrow cassettes because my uncle would get the cassettes for free because he works in the radio station. So my dad would borrow the cassettes, dub it, and customize his own mixtapes to be sold at the night market, at the local night market. And my dad would do that, and my dad would bring me along, and I was about 6, so I would be in charge of the toy section. So I would sell the shit out of those toys because I was very passionate about those toys, because I want those toys so badly, but we couldn't afford me toys at that point in time. So I would help him sell those toys. and my mother doubled up. She creatively started teaching the neighborhood kids, tutoring the neighborhood kids, as we would call it. She started babysitting, etc., 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 and our household income grew so much more than it would have been if my dad was just working. So that became a blessing in disguise, sort of. And what had happened was my father continued to do that for a while, and then he got a better job and he moved on with that. But my mom, from that point onwards, had continued the notion of maintaining the business that she founded at that point in time, and it went on and went on. And fast forward again to the year 1999, 1998, 1999, yeah. That was the Asian crisis. Now, a lot of people were affected during that time. And by this time, I actually could not go to college at that time because, again, my dad lost his business massively. And things were getting pretty bad towards that time. And my dad had just lost pretty much everything. We almost lost the house that we were living in. Some really nasty stuff kept happening. And again, I had to decide to become creative at that point in time, because my father said, nope, you can't go to college, go get a job. So what my dad did was, I was really into computers at that time. He said, I can't give you college, I'll pay for a short course for you to go learn about computers. So I learned to repair and fix computers professionally, and I made that as my living. And I started to learn how to raise capital. Right, I started to learn how to raise capital at that point in time. Raising the capital was important for me to buy the hardwares, buy the tools that was needed, and also to find a way to go to this college, right? So I started improvising my interpersonal skills, because I was a very, very shy individual at one point in time. So I had to learn how to talk to people, how to negotiate, how to make deals, because again, my future depended on it, because my dad had just like, nope, ain't gonna happen, right? He was like, nope. And because my dad didn't go to college, I was the first in my entire family and extended family to have gone to college, because they all were only able to go to high school and then that's it. So I learned to raise capital, and I got a student loan, which I was only supposed to pay after I have graduated. And so it went on that way. And about 6 months later, I was able to go to college, and that's how that story started. And from that point onwards, I became a different person, where I realized that, like, hey, if you want something done in your life, don't depend on the system, work around the system, be better than the system, things like that, of that nature. Then what had happened was I finished college, finished my college, and I couldn't continue my degree because again I didn't have enough money, so I continued working again. I worked for a few more years, for about a year or so, yeah, and then again raised enough money, blah blah blah, gained enough experience, went to college with a very clear mindset, and I mean college was a breeze for me at that point in time. Then on, I got a good job and I started working. From the moment I started working, the salary that I was making was not enough, and I had signed an exclusivity agreement with my college at that point in time, that I would not go into a competing business. So I couldn't do things that of other nature that the college would frown upon, or I could lose my job. So I started hustling. So because I was teaching film and media design, and etc., I decided to get a real world job so that I could make my portfolio look better. So what I would do is I would go to classes. I would teach in the morning. So my lessons would start about 9 o'clock and it would end at about 5. So 9 to 5 I would teach, and then at about 7 o'clock I would do freelance editing and other things in a different part of town. And then I would do about 2 or 3 different ones in one night. So I'd come home at about maybe like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and then I'll go to college again. I'll go to teach my students again at 9 o'clock. Now this went on for a while. The good thing is the money was good. The bad thing is I became a very, very, very angry person. So this term of mental health was not a thing back in the days. So I did not know that I had issues of that nature. So I was a very angry person. I was cranky all the time. Like it's unbelievable how cranky I was, you know. All the time I was cranky. And that added some other health related issues, etc. But again, I found ways to be more creative. And then I started making movies. Again, the main reason for me to make the movies was because I was in that line of work. What had happened was I was given a project to do the movies, and I realized that I could not afford to hire everybody for each individual roles. So I learned all the tools of the trade. Again, this is before Google was easy. This is before internet was very fast, right? So you had to go and learn things the hard way. I had to offer my services for free just so that people would teach me, etc. So the point I'm making is very simple. Every 10 to 12 years, crisis comes. And I promise you, it comes in any way, right? It can come in an extreme way like this. It can come in simpler ways. But it does come. You have to be creative in the way you solve it. But most importantly, you have to be very, very clever in the way you resolve the issue by monitoring how you keep your cash flow when things are needed, right? When you're making money, keep it with you, right? When you're making money, keep it with you. I've taught the rules of saving many times before. Now, even at times like this, some people are still living life regularly. Still, they are paying their bills. Still, they are doing well, etc. So, the age-old wisdom of keep more than what you spend will never go out of practice. And this is the reason why the world's top billionaires stay billionaires, and the so-called new age millionaires and billionaires go bust. Don't go on a shopping frenzy when you have a little bit of money, right? understand this, that life can go either ways. It can go up, it can go down. But when it goes down, do you have the power to stay? Or are you one of those people who just box and fall, right? So I've talked about the saving rules many times. After this crisis is over, it's your choice how fast you want to recover, right? There's the 80-20 methodology and there's a 20-80 methodology. Very simply put, if you want to move up fast, keep 80%, live off 20%. To a lot of people, this will be very hard. Very hard, right? So the next way around it is live on 80, but definitely keep 20%. Do this with the discipline. Do this for the next 3 to 5 years, but do it constantly. I'm saying years, I'm not saying months, because it's going to take a while for the world to recover from this. Jobs are going to be harder, opportunities are going to be scarcer, right? So you have to find a way out of this by being resilient, by being creative. No two ways about it, yeah? So I hope this short video has been helpful. Again, once the workshop is ready, I'm still working on it, like I told you guys, because I don't like doing things half-baked. So I want to make sure it's really done well. And until I'll see you guys again, good luck and stay safe.